All right, and welcome back to a not mind test gameplay video. This is an update video on my Lenovo E485 after 6 months of having it. And as you can see, it's running Linux, Ubuntu 1904 specifically, and it was it was something else trying to get this to run properly. So, a little bit of history. This machine was an E485 Lenovo ThinkPad. Came with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it has a Ryzen 5 and AMD graphics. Now, the cool thing about this is I've always been an AMD fan ever since back in the day when I used to build my own PCs. I had an XP 2600 Plus and a 2400 Plus, which were single core. This is going way back. This is the 2000s. And the machines outperformed their Intel counterparts. It doesn't matter whether you like Intel, whether you like AMD. They both get the job done. As you can see, I'm running 1904 Ubuntu, or however you want to pronounce it. This is my standard fallback Linux operating system. It has been ever since I discovered Dapper Drake Linux Ubuntu way back in the day. And I've run everything from, I've shown in videos my keys and certificates for Caldera Linux and Mandrake, the box edition that I bought. So yeah, I've been dabbling in Linux quite some time. However, after Windows XP, I went to Linux and Mac full time, and not until recently did I have a Windows 10 machine when I bought this laptop. I have a MacBook Air 2015, which still to this day is one of my favorite all-time pieces of equipment. So there. As you could tell, right now, OBS Studio, I've bumped up the settings. It's actually recording in 60 frames per second. I've gotten finally figured out what canvas and rescale settings are supposed to be. So, as you can see, this is my basic Linux desktop. It's GNOME 3.32.1. They still haven't fixed the problem with the RAM usage, because right now I do have a lot of programs open. It's at 2.79 gig. However, idling after a clean boot, it's running at almost a gig of memory, which is unacceptable. And it appears that they don't have all the memory leaks figured out that have plagued them over the past couple releases. I like this desktop. If you're going to use an operating system, you have to be able to enjoy it, or unless you really don't care what your desktop looks like. I have a real cool wallpaper. Yeah. I have Conky and Conky Manager running, and it just gives me the date and time. It gives me my hard drive's spec, how much free space, how much is used, my RAM free or used and total, and it gives me a CPU. Wow, we're running at 39%. However, OBS Studio is running at 10.7, 6.4. If I drop it down to 30 frames per second, it'll run at like 1.2. And I'm experiencing no issues. I am experiencing an issue with, now, as you can see here, let's do a quick walk around. So I added like applications plugin for the top bar. Extensions, they're called. And here's a calendar. And it's 83 degrees in Chicago right now. This is caffeine, which is, it disables or enables the auto suspend and screensaver. I keep that turned on. There's OBS. There is P sensor. This tells me what my fan is running at, what my temperatures are, and it'll also give me a graphical readout. That's cool. Of my fan and CPU and all that other fun stuff. Is it needed? No. He's got proprietary software on a Linux desktop. Yeah, I have Dropbox. Sue me. And then we have a screenshot program. Very nice. There's my screenshot. We're going to save that. Yes, we are. I love taking screenshots, especially of stuff that I don't have enough time to copy it, or it's flying by or something like that. That tool comes in handy. A clipboard manager. These are valuable to anybody that's anything. It saves what you typed, what you copied. Over here we have our volume mic, all the stuff, your sound, Wi-Fi or Ethernet is charged, and the user that's logged in. You have your settings, your lock screen, and your power. And this is basically the GNOME desktop. Now, over here I changed it from the Ubuntu bar, which went all the way up and all the way down. Plus, as you can see here, it'll vanish when, when you are switching or going full screen on a window. So it gets out of the way. It just has. Now, here's I have open files. The only thing I don't like, and I don't understand how people have not been able to fix this, is that let's click on terminal. If you click on terminal again, it should minimize it. It doesn't. Yay. That's simple stuff. And it doesn't. So that's another gripe that I have. I changed the icon colors. So if we go over here to settings, now you notice that I'm flying around to all these, and you can Alt Tab, which will show stuff on the current desktop that can be changed. But if I go up to the upper left-hand corner, it brings up, or I hit the meta key, which is the Windows super key, or if you run Windows. Now, you can see I have all these desktops. These are virtual desktops. So I can go in between different desktops and keep programs isolated, or go to a blank screen. Goes from like that. So if we go back over to here and our details, this is our settings page for everything on this machine. Privacy, application, defaults, notifications, whatever it's running. You can adjust that in here. What programs send out notifications, which ones do not. Very nice. However, you can't really customize anything in here. So for that, you need a program called Tweak. And GNOME Tweak, which is not installed by default, but it's in the repositories, will have all your extensions. That's what all these up here are. So my clipboard indicator, the caffeine plugin, applications menu, which is this over here, which gives you some more control and separates your programs into categories. Because the other way is when you when you hit the show applications button, there we go. I don't know why it's lagging a little bit. You can see it does a thing like on Mac OS 10, and it just throws all of them up here. I don't like that. I guess it's okay, but it's not something. Oh, it opened it up on my other desktop. Let's put it over here. There we go. There's my calendar. That's another. I'll get to that. You adjust your fonts in here. Your top bar, how you want it to look, where your open and close buttons, if you want the Mac style, you put them over to the left. Your Windows title bars, everything is adjustable. That's the beauty of Linux, is that you can do a lot of customization with it. However, back in the old days, you see here's my calendar or my forecast widget. I love having that up in the top bar. Down here, the calendar, when you used to be able to click on a date. I don't know what that just did. I used to be able just to click on a date and it would open up your calendar app. How ridiculous is that? that you can't access your calendar program by, okay, I'm looking at here, June 29th. I have nothing available. I want to open up and create an appointment. And you can't. No matter what key you click, you have to go back and open up your calendar program of choice and then do it. And this is the GNOME calendar, and it'll also show you the weather for a couple days. Very nice. So, moving quite along, and this is going to be a short video. One of the cool things about why I use Linux, it's free. And for the most part, depending on the distribution, it's open source. And what I mean by that is I'm running AMD, and the AMD graphics drivers and everything are already in the kernel module. And it's, as you can see here, kernel modules in use, AMD GPU. So they have an open source driver from AMD that runs on Linux. Very nice of them. That's another reason why I choose AMD. Because with NVIDIA, and there's nothing wrong with NVIDIA graphic cards. I've owned many of them over the years, but you have to install different proprietary graphic drivers. And depending on if you're Richard Stallman or other Linux gurus, that's not acceptable for that. This program here, Linux does contain everything that one would need to get your basic job done. Obviously, it's not going to have Pro Tools. You're not going to be able to do Photoshop, anything from Adobe on here. We have other programs that are professional level that can be run. You can run DaVinci Resolve on Linux. You can run Shotcut. There's a lot of different tools available. One has to find it. This is comparable to Notepad++, which is also open source, but it's on the Windows version. And in KDE, we have Kate, which is an advanced text editor. As you can see here, this is a bash file that I have that runs on my server. I can have it all color-coded and out. This is an SQL query. So you can see down at the bottom, there's all these different languages that will help you out. This is a Lua, init Lua file from Mindtest on my mod. And this is a JSON file. So it color codes everything. It makes it real easy for programmers if one should want that. How you do the clipboard manager, if you've never seen one. Right now, this bit of code is highlighted, but I want this one. So if I paste, there you go. I paste that in there. Now if I go back into the clipboard and select that one, boom, there you have it. That's basically what a clipboard manager does for everybody. And I want to close everything without saving. Go back up here. And like I said, I've changed all my icon colors and everything else. It's just, Linux is a very simple, fun way of working. You could customize everything that you want. You can move you could do lots of different things here. So it depends on the user. Now, over yonder, I got people paging me over yonder. Let's go through some programs real quick. And so far, after 6 months, the laptop is operated flawlessly. So here is a picture from the Lenovo website on the E485. And here's your battery. Here's your memory. Look at that weird fan. There's like hundreds of vanes on here. It's 8 screws to pull the bottom off, and the chassis, 8 screws, and you have to use like a credit card or a thin piece. I use the guitar pick to unsnap the little snaps all the way around. This is the second drive bay. So the way if you configure your Lenovo laptop, it'll have an M.2 SSD for your boot drive, and then you could either have a high volume, like a 1 terabyte hard drive for data, or in my case, I went to my local Micro Center. Not a plug for Micro Center, but they've saved me a lot in the past. And you have this dummy drive bay, and the connectors, everything are included. You put a little screwdriver down in here. You pry this out. You take the caddy, the dummy caddy out of the caddy. That made no sense. It's a fake drive that sits in there to hold everything. And this is like a rubber grommet, a plastic and rubber grommet. And you put your SSD in there, you plug it in. I put my additional 8 gig of memory in here. So now I have 16 in dual channel mode. And there's a battery. And put the drive in there, put the bottom back on. Didn't put the screws back in because I want to make sure everything booted. And it booted and everything found it perfectly. Yes, indeed. So, the problems with Lenovo is that there's a thing called an IVRS, an APC IVRS table. Did I get that right? ACPI IVRS, and that stands for Virtual Reporting System for AMD. And this has something to do with power, ACPI. I don't claim to know when you get into the machine code and hardware of the stuff, but it seems to be that a lot of manufacturers don't like Linux anymore. Even though you have the Dell XPS series, which is Ubuntu based, you have some Lenovo is coming out with a P series for Linux, and P stands for price because it's very pricey to get that. But there's been a lot of issues with the E485, 495, with this table, with parts of the table not put in. And one has to think, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. However, I do love a good conspiracy. But for an engineer, for a software engineer at that level, not to put in Linux in that table, it seems like a conspiracy theory. However, it is running, as you can see, and there's a lot of people that have way more knowledge on this than I do, have gotten it running. So basically, if you do come across one of these old, in the years to come, you find one of these older E485 laptops, there is just one line that goes in, and you put in IVRS _ IOA pick 32 and that value, and then 33 and that value. I got timers and everything going off at the same time. Wow. Sorry about that. Professionalism. But this is how I got it to boot, and I put it in the grub. There's a lot of articles that I've used and put in there, like on my website. I put links into all this and to make it permanent. And I didn't even have to. When I booted up on a thumb drive, and I had changed those settings in Grub, when I installed the operating system, it remembered it. So that was very, very, very cool on that. Yes, a quick interruption from my future self. And to install Linux on most modern laptops, since it uses the UEFI for the BIOS, you have to go into the BIOS settings and turn off secure boot, and you have to adjust the UEFI settings to allow both legacy and UEFI only, depending on the distribution that you're going to run. The third thing is, because of a Windows partition, especially if you just use the one drive, with two drives, it can still cause some problems down the road. Windows uses a thing called a quick boot. And what it is you see how all of a sudden, like Windows 10, look how fast it boots up and shuts down. That's because it's using a hybrid hibernation file, suspend hibernation file. And that's what it's really doing. So if you use like the File Explorer in Linux, and you try to mount the Windows drive, it'll tell you, there's a problem. Do you want to format it? That just means that the drive never fully shut down, and it's in a strange state. So by turning off Quick Boot, that allows that drive to be readable. So now back to the show. I'm not a huge gamer. I have my Mind Test and Solitaire and Super Tux and Extreme Tux Racer. Graphics, Professional, Blender, GIMP, GNU Image Manipulation Program, Inkscape, Krita, PhotoFlare, Polar, Shotwell, all of it. The Simple Scan, which is the scanner over in my Epson printer. Sweet Home 3D, which is an awesome program. Internet stuff. I have my FileZilla, Dropbox, Chromium, Thunderbird, Vivaldi, Firefox. I already said that. Programming, I have all my NetBeans, Eclipse, Atom, all my different browsers for working with databases. I have PyCharm from JetBeans, the Community Edition. I also have my JasperSoft Studio, which does reporting for SQL, professional reports, and sound and video, Ardour, Audacity, Cheese. Believe it or not, the webcam does work. Hi. Except for in OBS. OBS won't find it. I don't know why. I have to work on that. So, system tools, there's tweaks, there's BleachBit, which cleans out, there's SnapStore. I'm not a huge fan of Flatpaks or snaps. There's not a real, this is a snap. You can see how long it's taking to boot up the first time, and it booted it up to the other monitor. But yeah, it works. It works quite well. But you have to, when you do things in Linux, I'm trying to bring up the, real quickly before we say goodbye, here's the Ubuntu software store. When you're going through here and you're going through different tools, where's graphics and photography, and you know, there's loads of different options. Dia is very good for diagramming. You can see here where there's two different Inkscapes. Digicam is very, very good. You have to, when you bring up a program, you have to look down and see if it's a snap pack or flat pack, and look at the ratings. And other than that, everything should be just fine. There's a good amount of software here that one would be able to use. And would I install this for grandma and grandpa? Yes, I would, because it's easy to maintain and use. So that is going to do it. That is the 6-month update on my fantastic ThinkPad E485, even with all the installation problems with Linux, and which is not like all my problems with Windows 10 have nothing to do with the hardware, but it is running. It looks good. I enjoy looking at it. And you could try Linux without butchering the operating systems that are already. As a matter of fact, if you talk to any IT technician worth their weight in salt, most of them will have a thumb drive live version of Linux that is in their toolbox, which in case Windows goes belly up or whatever the case is, they pull that out and they can emergency boot and run antivirus software and do whatever they can to get that Windows instance back up and running. So, there you have it. There is my desktop. So thank you very much for joining. And that's it. See you in the next Mind Test gameplay video. Goodbye.